titled this Prompting for Impact in .NET is I think that there's kind of a misnomer with Copilot that I think everybody thinks that it's, something that you could just tell it what you want and it gives you stuff. So we're going to talk about how to use Copilot to make an impact, not just generate code. I know that a lot of us probably use Copilot to generate code, but it can do more than just that, although I know that a lot of us, our main output is code. But before I jump into that, I wanted to share a little bit about myself. I'm a consultant at Lean Techniques, along with Daniel, who's one of the organizers of the San Antonio side of the .NET user group. And right now, I'm currently at a client helping to enhance the team's workflow using AI. So when people ask me what I do, I say that I'm an AI technical coach, and I don't know what that means, but I say that in jest. But really, what we do is we try to help teams to better their workflows, to better themselves, and really overall encourage an AI first habit in their organizations and in their environment. I also would say that I suck at blogging, but I'm trying. So I made a website called fullproductdev.com where trying to elaborate on the idea of what a full product developer is. There's a blog post there for more about that. But the resources, there'll be a link at the end of this slide with resources to this talk on that site. But for the most part, I'm a tinkerer. I like music, woodworking, and automating. And I'm rarely on socials. I have some socials, but I'm rarely on there, but usually I'm trying to build something fun or interesting. So enough about me. I want to talk about what we're going to talk about. What is prompting for impact? I kind of touched on that with the title. We're going to be talking about what that is, and is this or is this not just prompt engineering, and how to get more out of GitHub Copilot than just code, as well as some demo on some boilerplate API. Basically, just a high level. What I did was I took the if you do use Rider and do a new .NET API project, basically just took that and added a test project with no tests. We're gonna do a demo using that. I also have some branches of code of different ways that I used Copilot to kind of help with that. Otherwise, we could be here for a long time because there's a lot of things about Copilot that I could cover, but trying to keep it within the hour time limit. But also, I'll give some of my final thoughts based on some of the things that I've seen, and also some of the things that, not just that I've seen, but that I've even experienced in my personal use, not just in coaching. And then we'll have a time for Q&A, and also I'll put up the resources slide at the end. So before we get started, I'm going to make a few assumptions. I'm going to assume that we're going to be using GitHub Copilot, of course, because I'm talking about using Copilot. But also, sorry, before I get into that one, also something right now that's currently in the ecosystem of using Copilot is VS Code. The extension for Copilot is still currently better than the Copilot plugin in Rider or any other JetBrains. So I'll be doing most of my demo and examples, and my anecdotal stories will be mostly based around VS Code and using that, as well as github.com/copilot, which is the like website version of Copilot, sort of similar to ChatGPT. Another assumption is prompting is non-deterministic, and we typically want deterministic-ish outcomes. I say ish because we mostly want deterministic, but there's some allowance for some non-determinism because it's AI. But also, AI won't take your job, but a developer equipped with AI tools might. And so, what I want to do is help equip you to be that developer that would not necessarily take that job, but would have the job. That's one of the things that we sometimes say in our coaching sessions is that, we want you to be equipped so you can be that developer and have that competitive edge. Also, not all code bases are created equal, nor are LLMs. So your prompting may vary based on the code base, also on what model that you're using, things like that. So there's just some assumptions that I wanted to lead off with. So let's jump right into what is prompting for impact. So when I first approached learning as much as I can about using AI for good and tackling problems with I wanted to figure out what can AI do? Like what can an LLM do? What can an agent do? What can an MCP server do? What can Copilot do? And so the reason I chose the phrase prompting for impact is that I know that we can get code and I know that we can tweak it to get even better code. But what I want to do is I want to use Copilot to help me think, to help me solve problems better, because I already know how to write code. And I also know that if I get Copilot to generate a lot of code for me, that's going to switch me from being the creative part of my brain of figuring out problems and solving them. And then if Copilot's just doing it all, then I go to reviewing code. And I think what we've seen in across some teams is that a lot of developers don't want to just review code, and it creates a bottleneck. I can't remember. I think I recently saw in was it .NET? Is it? I don't know if it's .NET 10 that's coming out, or there's something in a recent article that I saw. I'll have to go back and find the article and send it later. This is not in my notes, but that Copilot was used heavily for a recent update. And what they found was that there was a bottleneck with PRs because it created so many PRs. And Copilot's not quite there yet to just completely trust approvals of PRs. And so, just one caveat with that. But as far as prompting for impact, really getting into using Copilot and other AI tools to help you think, to enhance our cognitive ability, to help our critical thinking and our problem solving rather than just, like, hey, garbage in, garbage out, give me code. So that's kind of why I chose prompting for impact, and that's what I believe it is. But then that leads into, is this just prompt engineering? And I did use AI to generate this. I thought it would be fun, but basically, no, but also yes. So prompt engineering, a few years ago, you probably heard it was all the hype. It's like 300K a year for a prompt engineer. I never saw that, but just using hyperbole, just people were like talking about prompt engineering is the best thing, the next best thing. You just got to learn how to prompt it. Well, what I think we've seen is over the last few years is it becoming more of a skill rather than a role. And so, really, what we're doing is yes, we're kind of prompt engineering. We're engineering prompts to get better stuff out of Copilot, but utilizing that as a skill to give us better results, to give us better outcomes. And so, one of the things about prompt engineering or prompting for impact, even, is that really the more complete the context you give it, the more accurate the outcomes will be. And so, kind of jumping in, how do I get more out of GitHub Copilot than just code? Well, uh, there's different modes of interaction with AI that I've seen across multiple teams. I'm not going to give an exhaustive list. I'm just going to give a few examples of some modes that I've seen and that and how you could use them. And one of those is for one of those categories of modes is learning. And you can prompt Copilot or even ChatGPT or whichever tool in a Q&A mode where you can basically say, "Hey, I want you to ask me questions about something." And so, or like vice versa, like you ask it questions and have it give answers. But really, if you flip the script and say, "Hey, ask me questions about a topic to see if I know it," you can see this usually as like approaching a code base and saying, "Hey, I'm learning design patterns and I'm using C sharp. Can you give me an example and help me, like, ask me a question about it and then examine my response?" You can do basically, it's kind of like a quiz and answer or a question and answer. There's also role play where you can have AI take on the persona of teacher and you be the student. There's so many different ways. You just get so creative in all of these with different prompts and ways to do this. And also, I don't have it in the resources right now, but I'll update the site with a few prompt examples for some of these that are not specific to Copilot. But I wanted to give just kind of an overview. Also, brainstorming. This one's one of my favorites. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of, I think it's Clifton's top five strengths or the strengths finder or something like that. But ideation is one of my, I think it's my number two strength, which is basically like coming up with ideas. And I can't tell you how many times I go to AI to just like, let's work through an idea and also don't assume anything, challenge my assumptions. So it's really good for rubber ducking, bouncing ideas off of it. This also works with Copilot as well, because sometimes when you're trying to solve a problem, rather than just say, go fix it. You could bounce ideas off of ask mode and try to figure out what the problem actually is, really dive into it and like come up with what, uh, like what is the problem? And then maybe let's come up with a plan of steps to actually solve it. And then that way it engages the creative part of your brain, the problem solving part. So you can do deep research. I use this on GPT all the time, but you can also do deep research into your code base as well and try to find one question I like to ask Copilot is, can you look at my code base and give it as context and find any areas where there might be a potential for a production issue and help me to create tech debt items, like let's do some markdown files with tech debt items so that I can put them in my backlog to work on later or address them now if you want. So for impact, I would take some of the different things that we talked about with like learning or brainstorming, and if you're using that in a context where you're using Copilot with your code base, is take all of the insight from rubber ducking or deep research or like the things that you've learned from the role play or any other mode that you use to process information and to come up with a plan, and then take that and use it as context to complete the action. And so I call it combining insight with action or taking action based off of the insight that you get. There's also more. So like I said, this is not an exhaustive list. I just wanted to give ideas because I think one of the cool things about Copilot and AI is right now, like I've been saying this. I don't know if everybody else has heard this, but I've been saying that AI is the worst it's going to be. It's just going to get better. And I mean, I don't know if anybody has seen, actually, this is just a really quick aside. I don't know if anybody's seen some of those like vlog videos where somebody generated like George Washington vlogging the Revolutionary War. Pretty hilarious if you go and find them, but basically, like, it's AI generated because it's not technically possible to have video footage of the Revolutionary War, but it actually looks pretty good and is kind of funny. So, anyways, that was an aside, but basically, your creativity is pretty much limitless when it comes to different ways to engage with Copilot or even like ChatGPT, Claude, all these other tools, but specifically with Copilot, your ways of interacting with it are pretty much limitless. Like the sky's the limit. You can come up with new ways to come up to find information, to process information, and also execute. So
Well, Jeremy,
typical
I got a
prompting.
question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Specific use case that is pretty common for us is, initially when we do an assessment on legacy code, seems like this is a great opportunity to use Copilot to help do that initial assessment for us. Any thoughts on like how to approach that?
Yeah, on how to approach like what to do with the legacy code
Yeah,
or
just like understand the complexity of it, and where there's holes, and uh, because oftentimes it's like a modernization type of project off of, and kind of trying to utilize legacy code when possible.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, no, so with legacy code, a really great thing, and I'm assuming something in the question that you're asking is I'm assuming there's probably not many tests around the legacy code.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so a great thing that you can do, and I've even tried this with the coding agent from Copilot, which I won't be really touching on that in this talk specifically, but using this because it's kind of a big task, but you can do it in Copilot in VS Code as well, is using the agent mode to go and build characterization tests around the existing code base. So I think sometimes it's called black box testing, where basically you test the code as it is so that you have a working test suite. And then that way you can start when you need to refactor or understand it, you can go look
Yeah,
at the
great idea.
code that or the tests that are generated to understand what it does. You can still also just talk to it, but I feel like if it doesn't have tests, adding tests will then create compilable understanding for later visitors to the code.
Right. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. That was a good question. Um, yeah, so what I've seen with Copilot out in the field is with before any kind of coaching, before any like if somebody just like installed VS Code and started setting up, logged into Copilot extension and started coding, you'd get something like write a function that does XYZ. What does this code do? Insert boring request with little to no context. Basically, that one's just a broad example of kind of what you see out in the wild. What I see when people have gone through this coaching, as well as just people that have maybe done some research and have tried to learn about prompt engineering and how to get more stuff out of Copilot, is they do discovery, context building, and then action. Um, or then the act. Sorry, the video is covering the slide. But as like a PO, oh, so part of the prompting is you can give it personas. Like as a PO or PM, you can tell it to explain why the code exists. Now, it may not get it perfectly clear. Also, it's kind of hard to elaborate what a true prompt would look like in a bullet point. But I'm trying to just convey the idea of if you give it a persona and you give it some behavioral reasoning parameters, it will give you much better results than if you just ask it a question with nothing. So basically, you build context around the why and determine the what and let Copilot handle the how. I put an asterisk because a responsible developer owns the outputs and outcomes of the generated code. So don't blindly trust it, verify it with tests and small, tightly scoped changes. So while you can have agent mode go and do a whole lot of stuff, I will save you the headache by telling you that if you let it do a lot of things, you will now need to go and understand a lot of things that didn't exist a second ago or a minute ago or however long it took to generate. So my recommendation is while you can do that, like maybe if you're fast prototyping, let it handle a lot of stuff, but just know that if you are working on like a team that's in like an enterprise or you're trying to write really well maintained software, I probably wouldn't let agent mode just run wild. Um, at least not unless you had really good tweaked like parameters and instructions around it that you trusted and it's been giving you really good results and it's been time tested. Because right now, there's still a big question. How do we actually test LLMs? How do we actually test agents to make sure that they do what they're supposed to? Because they're non-deterministic. Like if I were to say, give me like with no code already in the repo, if I were to start up a new empty folder and say, write me an application that uh, gets the weather in some part of the globe. There's not a guarantee of what language it would write. It might write TypeScript, it might write Python, it might write .NET code. Who knows? It depends on maybe what the LLM, like if it has any history on what you've been using or context of any kind that you don't know about. But because it's non-deterministic, there's it's kind of hard to gauge or test how well an LLM will do. Which it's kind of funny. I've been reading a book about AI engineering. It's probably best to use AI to test AI, which sounds really weird and redonkulous, but that's currently like the way to go is if you have a separate LLM that's designed for validating LLM output. That was just a funny little aside. But also with getting more out of Copilot, um, something that we basically at the very least. Oh, sorry, did somebody say something? Nope. Okay. At the very least, on some of the teams that we coach, is just by adding a custom instructions. We'll touch on these with the demo a little bit more hands-on with it, but just giving a custom instructions to Copilot makes the output so much better because you can describe behavior, you can kind of give it examples. If anybody's familiar with zero shot, one shot, and few shot prompting, those are terms that if you wanted to look them up, they're just ways of giving examples to the LLM when you're trying to generate code. Giving it an example makes it a more accurate um, approach when generating code or generating any other kind of thing. Um, Also, reusable prompts. That's a feature that VS Code came out with where you can do a slash command in Copilot and it will let you save. You can save a prompt file that has all the context for a certain type of task that you want to do, and it'll run that entire prompt as context. And you can also limit the tools and things that it can use and what modes it can be in. But it's pretty extensible. That coupled with custom instructions is pretty cool. But my favorite is chat modes, where you can basically establish a persona, the types of tools and things and behavior before you even chat. So the custom instructions I would say is kind of like a pre-linter for AI, maybe. I don't know if that's the best term, but I haven't really thought of a better analogy where basically you're kind of putting guardrails around like the interaction on the what it can do and what it can't do. Whereas the reusable prompts is just something to like, save this is the thing I did. Here, do it again. Whereas chat modes is the personality, so to speak, or the persona of the experience, where you can have it interact a certain way. And you can also limit it to like, can it edit files? Can it fetch the internet? Can it do all these other things? If you're looking for great examples, there is a repo that I share with so many people that some of my colleagues say that I need to get Microsoft merch because I share it so much. In the if you were to go and download the resources at the end, this is a clickable link in the PDF. But there's a repo called Awesome Copilot that has example prompts, example instructions, and example chat modes. And my favorite is beast mode. Uh, High level, the beast mode one, basically, if I were to describe it in a nutshell, is you give it a task and it will go until it completes the task. Um, I think it's in the instructions themselves. Like it's go until it's done. And it actually builds out like a to-do list to help with planning out the tasks, the whole process that it's trying to run. So if you want to check out some examples of really cool chat modes, I recommend going there. Also experiment playing with your own, like making your own chat modes, which we can probably do. We can make a chat mode in our demo. That would probably be fun. Oh, speaking of demo, it's demo time. I will switch over to VS Code. And so right now I have, let me just clear out the terminal. Uh, is this readable? Is this good? Do I need to make it any bigger? I don't know if maybe Daniel or somebody could give me a thumbs up. Well, Daniel's on video and I can see him on my
For me,
other
it's
screen.
fine.
Oh, it's fine? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I've got basically the boilerplate API that you get from creating in a Rider, which I also have Rider open over here too. But I'm using VS Code, and this is the boilerplate weather API that it gives you right when you create the template. And so what I wanted to kind of do before I jump into the demo, I don't know if anybody had any questions before really diving into the demo because I've got a couple of things I want to cover, but I know that I've talked a lot uh, for the last probably 20 minutes. But were there any questions so far?
No.
Okay, cool. So jumping into here, what I've done is I've downloaded some chat modes from the Awesome Copilot chat mode web or Awesome Copilot repo. I've got beast mode, and then I also grabbed TDD red green refactor, which I think are pretty cool, and I'll talk on them here in a second. But I've also grabbed some instructions so that I can kind of show what those look like. And then I have three prompts that I wrote. I wanted to show an example of an okay prompt, a better prompt, and I called it the overachiever prompt because I didn't want to call it the best prompt because I feel like there's no best prompt. But basically, what I want to do is I will do a demo of using Copilot a little bit, but in essence of time, what I've done is I've gone ahead and run these prompts separately to kind of show what the outcome looks like. Because I think that really at the end of the day, we want maybe to see how it works, but we also want to see like what does an okay prompt give me versus a better prompt, and what does the outcome look like? And so I'm gonna real quick switch my branch over to we'll go to the okay example. And what I'll do is show you, uh, I wanted to, so I'll go over what the prompt does first. So what my prompt does is I just literally have it say, make a new endpoint that gets weather for a specific city in a state. And so what it did, and I actually exported the markdown of the conversation. So I'll kind of go over that briefly first. I'll make it bigger and so basically what it did was I prompted it with that prompt, which you see right here. It pulled that file contents in, and it tried to implement it, making a weather controller file. But if you notice in the program.cs file, I'm using minimal API. So first of all, it took a wrong step because I told it to make a new API endpoint. And so it tried to do that. And when I tried to run it, it didn't work. It even tried to test it. It did a curl in the command line and nothing happened because there was nothing there. And so I ended up having to tell it. I try to talk to Copilot like it's a pair programmer. And so I said, have you tried adding the controller as a minimal API like the other one? And then I gave it context to the actual file where the controller's defined. And then it was like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, let me go and do that. And then it says, I don't know if it says it in here, but in the actual conversation, it said, okay, I deleted the other file. It didn't. And so basically, what I did was I walked it through and I had to interject quite a bit to get it to do things. So you can kind of see that this process had, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six interactions where I had to like correct it or change it. Well, not counting the last one, so five. But not that I'm gauging it on how many times I interacted with it for how successful it is. But like if I go and I look at the actual output that it gave me, like this is kind of cool and all, but like if I want to maybe follow a better practice of code, I feel like this file is already getting kind of messy for what it is because this is the program.cs file and there's no other files to do anything. I could also run this and do a quick curl, but basically it generated okay. Like I'm calling this okay. Like it's still technically done and it wrote a test using the web application factory. So if I wanted to go actually do the test, I can do .NET test and it's going to rebuild or yeah. And the tests pass. And like it generated okay tests. I mean, it's a very basic API. So granted, like many of us are probably working in way more complex code bases, but it did that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to move this. How do I move? There we go. Sorry, the little zoom thingy was in the way. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the better experience um, and show how, like, it still added it here in the same way. It added it to the program.cs file and it added a test or added some tests in kind of the same way. And if I were to run those, they should also all just work. Yeah, and it added fewer tests, but it also created a custom web application factory to wrap it, and it did nothing with it. So that was kind of little side notes of things that are a little different. Um, but if I were to go to the markdown file, I'm going to do the preview so it's easier to read. You'll kind of see where I gave it the instructions. I'll show you the instructions in a second, but see how it kind of built this implementation plan. So what I did in this prompt, I'll explain it here in a second, but it did give me some back and forth and it kind of ran out of the log. But this prompt that I did for the better example, I gave it instructions where I limited it to only do it in the ask mode. So it can't edit files in ask mode. So what I did was in the ask mode, I had it do this prompt. Basically, when I do a slash prompt, it'll convert it to this basically being in the chat mode. But what I'm doing here is I'm telling it to kind of almost the same thing, but I'm adding context with using the same coding standards and then making sure it's tested. And then basically what I did was I have this prompt run and create the execution plan, and then I switch it into agent mode. And when I switch it into agent mode, it now has all of that context of that implementation plan that we saw in here. Oh, not here. Where is the file? Uh, this one. So this whole implementation plan, the to-do list, all of that was now added as context for the prompt. And so I guess maybe switching over to complete the okay, better, and um, I have a beast and a TDD modes. I'll show the beast one really quick. I did the same thing, but I switched it to beast mode instead of agent mode. and it kind of gave the same let's open the preview. Sort of the same results where but this one it just kind of like it gives out a to-do list for what it's going to do, and then at each step it fills it in. And then I think this one I had to coax it to actually like create the files, but it ended up creating almost the same thing. But now the one that I really want to show you is using the TDD red green refactor modes in my TDD modes example. It created this iWeather service. Now, granted, I didn't give it direction on the architecture design except for using instructions. So basically, the instructions are ways to tell it what kind of files to run these instructions on whenever it's prompting. And so there are some API design fundamentals that are in here that helped instruct it to make this iWeather service as a separate file. And then there's a weather service, and then there's weather validation. And then in the program.cs file, it now has the weather forecast is, or where is it? The one that takes a state is here, and it injects the weather service using dependency injection. And you could refactor this further using the refactor chat mode. But basically, what I did, if I go back over to this one, this one allowed me to clarify the requirements, go through all of this information. I know that this is a lot and I'm just scrolling. All of this is in the repo for you to go and look at and examine. So I'm going to jump from doing this to actually doing some live co-piloting. But I just wanted to give a quick overview of where those are and what the difference between the generated code, because it generated, I would say, still a higher quality. It may not necessarily be like the style that any of us may or may not have been looking for, but and the tests still pass. This one has some warnings in it, and I didn't want to focus on solving all the warnings, but it did create 9 tests, which were basically it created more tests than the other ones combined, I think. So it has a little bit more test coverage potentially. If I were to analyze that more deeply, we could probably see where the nuances are different. So switching back over to main, I want to take us through a potential way of how I like to build context and show how we can implement the same thing. And hopefully Copilot will cooperate, because one of the things that did happen when I was making one of these is I think the beast mode, it executes a lot of requests really fast. And so I had to actually at one point log out of Copilot and log back in. So I did do that right before this. So theoretically, we should still be good. So I'm actually going to open up a new terminal. We've got Copilot over here, and I'm going to do ask mode. And I'm going to start off by saying, I would actually, let's see if the microphone thing works, because we all like we want to see vibe coding at some point, I think, right? I mean, I don't normally vibe code, but I think that's just what it's called when you use the microphone. So I'll just go ahead and describe it this way. Oh, never mind. I got to install an extension. Let's see if it does it really fast. See, I've never used the microphone button. All right, that's taking too long. So why does it have to put it right over the buttons? Well, I will do it without the thing being able to be seen. Let's see. Can I just drag this? There we go. That way I
Good
can see.
idea.
You have an idea?
No, that was a good idea.
Oh,
Yeah, we will leave you. You haven't used it before, so
yeah. I don't know why it's taking so long to install. I just want to stop it if I can, but that's not a big deal. I can still move on without having to worry about it. So I would like to implement a new endpoint using existing or using best practices for ASP.NET minimal APIs. Can you help me make an implementation plan? Please ask me any clarifying questions one at a time to make sure we do it right. Oh, and I'd like tests too, please. So what I've done here is I ran it without, ooh, here, let me actually rerun that same one and do Command Enter with code base. So I hit Command Enter because I can't see the little button. There's a little drop down right next to the airplane icon button that lets you automatically append the code base tool. And what this does is it adds the code base as context. All right, so now it's asking me a question. Um, what is the purpose of the new endpoint? Okay, cool. So I would like to see the weather in a particular city in the US. And I'm okay if it's mock data. Cool. So what I'm doing here is I'm building context for basically a more complete picture of what do I actually want. And let's just say I'd like to reuse the same response type as the existing endpoint. Okay. Do, 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 do. Let's do the bare minimum to get to have something to demo. Cool. Oh, hey, the thingy went away. I'm not going to hit the microphone button because I don't know if it's going to make it do other stuff. But all right, cool. So now what I like to do is now that it says that, hey, we've got a plan, I like to trick Copilot. I say trick. I like to prompt Copilot to give me a prompt. So, like one of the secrets to prompting that I learned probably a few months ago that kind of unlocked creativity for me with prompting was asking for the LLM, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Copilot or whatever, is asking for it to give you a prompt to accomplish whatever you're trying to do. So, what I would like to do is I would like to say, please give me a prompt to create an implementation plan and execute using agent mode in Copilot. Please give as much detail as needed in the prompt to uh, complete the requirements. And so what it should do here is it should take that context of like, hey, I'm going to give you a prompt now. So now it's giving me a prompt with this implementation plan of like what it wants to do with testing and then execution. And so now what I'm going to do is take this. You can either copy this, or what I like to do is because it's got this context in the conversation, I can now switch modes. I'm going to switch over to beast mode and just see if beast mode can just take it and run with it. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, please implement the plan we've discussed. And so now it's going to take that into consideration and it's going to go and work on it. And as you can see, it printed out this to-do list. And that's what helps the LLM or helps Copilot to plan out what it's going to do and keep track of where it's at in the steps. And so it's currently thinking, even though it's not got the little thing there. There we go. So it's working through the plan, and hopefully it's going to generate uh, at least to the point where it has the new endpoint and the ability to test it. So what I might do is while that's going on, I might real quick switch over to the GitHub Copilot website version to kind of show a little bit of the, uh, I don't know if it might actually switch back to VS Code because I know that changing focus, it tries to bring it back. But that's kind of one of the things of like something like Claude where you can have a sub agent that just goes and runs, or like Copilot coding agent having an actual agent, it'll run where you can then just go and do something else. So I might actually have to stick around for this one to finish, or I could pause it and then continue it later. But I think right now it actually, the test that it wrote passed. So Yeah, there. Technically, it's finished. It added the endpoint, and it currently uses the existing summaries and does a random because I don't have a weather API that's actually set up to get information. And the test that it wrote is also using the custom application factory iClass picture. So that was just an example of like getting beast mode to run and just do it really quick. But if you wanted a more complete and more elaborate, I would say elaborate, but picture of some of your code in a way that's probably more close to what you would want and be a more interactive experience, is if you did the red green refactor chat mode and then were to do like, hey, write all the failing tests. And then once it writes all the tests, then do green. And then you work through it to make all the tests pass with just enough code to make it pass. And then refactor it to your standards and then switch. So you just keep switching between those modes. So the reason I didn't demo that one right now is because that would be a lot of switching, and would take a while to demo. But let's see if I can switch over here. Real quick, I just wanted to show you could prompt with saying something along the lines of like, you are a teacher and I am the student. Teach me about design patterns using C sharp. Um, give me one question at a time. Let me respond and grade me. Keep a running score. Don't give me any hints unless I ask. Let's go. Also, start from beginner. Is it two G's? Yeah, no, one G. Okay, start from beginner to advanced. Cool. All right, so now it's giving me a question. Oh, telling me to explain why a design pattern is important. It makes it easier to identify what code does and to uh, abstract processes into digestible chunks and reuse across a code base. I don't know. They're just throwing together off the cuff answer. Cool. Singleton pattern. So basically, what you can do is basically prompt it to give you quizzes and ask you questions and to test your knowledge. That's one way of doing it. Another one would be you can brainstorm ideas like, hey, I have an idea for an API. Can you talk me through how I might make an agentic API using .NET and what would be my first steps to creating that? Also, give me a prompt that I can give to Copilot to scaffold out a .NET API with agentic capabilities.
You know, this would be a great way to prepare for an interview as well.
Oh yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, if you do that, and then with the fetch feature in Copilot, you can actually maybe even fetch the company website and ask it to give you uh, information about like the market or things that the particular role that you're interviewing for. You can even give the job description as context. Like there's so many things that you could do. But I'm just kind of throwing out different ideas that I've seen out in the wild. But there's so many different ways that you can do this as well. But yeah, so basically here's the prompt that it gave me to scaffold it out. So if we wanted to, you could just drop this into VS Code and have it try to run in beast mode and scaffold out I don't know how far it would go. I don't know exactly the use case, but basically the more context. So I'm going to say this again. This is probably the phrase that I would want everyone to leave here with is the more complete the context, the more accurate the outcomes. So I think I'll switch back to the slides. So I know that there's so much more that I could demo. I know that we only have about 10 minutes left, and I want to leave some time for questions here in a minute, but I want to definitely leave some final thoughts before we get into Q&A. Is definitely utilizing custom instructions and chat modes are a game changer when it comes to the code that you're creating or the type of learning that you're wanting to do. The chat modes, you can give it personas. Like one example persona that I thought was fun, I had this idea to generate a chat mode based off of a book. So like there's a book called Your Code is a Crime Scene that I generated a chat mode where it was like, hey, let's go investigate this code like we're detectives and like, rope off the a bug is like a crime scene. Let's investigate, like why did it happen and all this stuff. But it's like thinking, helping you to think in the mode of the author in the book. You can use it with pragmatic programmer or clean code or whatever. You can take book titles if there's any information or like summaries on the internet about them, it'll grab that information and make kind of a chat mode for you if you were to prompt it to do so. So I just thought that was a fun idea that I did one weekend. My wife actually told me to stop using Chat GPT for a little while because I did it with so many books and it was really fun. But also, learning how to prompt better will increase your mileage with Copilot, let alone any other LLM that you're or any other interface that you're using to talk to LLMs. And then also, there's always something new to learn. Like, so I just recommend making learning a habit, making AI a habit, and try seeing what an AI first mentality does in your workflow. So, like, the practical thing I can give you today is if you could just try to find ways to incorporate AI at the beginning rather than somewhere in the middle or the end, and just try. Because, like, what if AI got you 75% there? Actually, as an anecdote, there was a team that I coached that they had done a user story. They had completed it except for merging it into main. It took them 3 days without Copilot. And then in one of our coaching sessions, we used Copilot. We used IntelliJ, I think was the tooling, and it didn't have like all of the cool modes and stuff. But we were able to build context using the user story as context and then chatting with the code base and building up an implementation plan and then executing it with agent mode. And we got within 20 minutes, we got 75% of the way on a user story that normally would take 3 days. I know that that's not the same for every single experience, but that is a possibility. Like to get um, that kind of productivity and efficiency out of it. So instead, or with an AI first mentality, ask, have I tried using AI to solve this problem? Or you can ask AI, how might an expert blank approach this problem? Like you might be wondering, I don't know how I would approach this problem as a software engineer. Maybe ask AI, like, hey, if you're an expert engineer, what are some of the things that you would start with to approach this problem? Or as a product owner, or as a manager, even like, hey, as a manager, how would I get my engineers to think better about this type of problem? Or get meta, give me a prompt that accomplishes and then describe the problem. So rather than having it just straight up do fix the problem, get a prompt that solves that problem so that AI is really good at generating prompts for itself. It's kind of scary good at it. But definitely experiment and try new things, document it, share it. The more that we can learn, I just think that the better. I definitely think that we should use AI to enhance our abilities rather than to make us lazy and rely on AI to think for us in all scenarios. So anything you can do to engage AI in a way that uh, enhances your cognitive ability, I think is a great way to use it. With that, any questions or comments?
Mhm.
I know I went through a lot.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, that was great,
Quick
Patrick.
questions.
I got oh, there's a question in the chat from David. It is, what is the cost to embrace AI at this level? My company has no budget.
Yeah, that is a really good question. So as far as cost, I know that it varies at different levels for different like the different models, the different engagement factors. So I know that there is a free tier for Copilot. I don't know if organizations get a free tier off the top of my head, but I know that GitHub has has a lot of their pricing listed on their website. So I would definitely go check out their specific documentation on that one. But as an individual, there is a free tier that you can just get started with right away. It's a good question.
Patrick, I got a
Yeah, I
question.
know.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to add, I know Copilot has an enterprise level, which I think is 40 per dev per month. And I think the bonus of using Copilot over other stuff for enterprise is that there's an indemnity clause with Copilot, meaning there's a little checkbox you can check. It says, if you check this, you agree to not accept public code from stuff that Copilot gets. And if you do that, if for some reason your company gets sued because of code you used from Copilot, Microsoft will cover the costs of that stuff. I don't know of any other ones that do that. Maybe they're out there, but I know that's a big reason that um, the enterprise level Copilot's a popular choice.
Yeah. That and also coupled with Azure, there's a lot of things that just come with by being a Microsoft shop.
Yeah, Patrick, I got a question on I mean, I really liked your thought about we're not getting developers aren't getting replaced by AI. They're going to get replaced by AI enabled developers.
Mhm.
I think that's very accurate. And so, I think we don't have a choice but to embrace it. You can't deny that it's not there anymore. And I think that's a cultural change that your company also has to embrace as well, right? Like you have
Yeah.
to build a AI first mentality. How have you seen that work, or what approaches have you seen work with companies doing that well?
So far, I know that at the company that Daniel and I work for, Lean Techniques, part of the way that we've embraced it is we from leadership have been like encouraged to like go and explore, learn about it. If you want to use it, go use it. I've also seen at another company that one of the companies that we do work for, where the company is like, hey, like we are getting coaching for it, so like we really want people to do this. Um, and it's kind of also sort of being shared as like everybody should do AI. So like there's kind of like I feel like it's a my personal view on it is that I think it's best when you make it the individual's idea rather than
Hmm.
forcing it. But I think you can do that by showing off, like if you have teams that are using AI and using it well, is showing it off within the organization and showing what it can do and what it's capable of doing. I think that is going to win more devs over than forcing it. Because if you force it, then they'll
Hmm.
just do it because they have to. But if they do it
Hmm.
because they want to, it's going to be a uh, much better outcome for everybody involved, honestly.
Right. Okay.
Can you all hear
Yeah.
me?
And oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You want to finish your thought?
No, no, go ahead. Is that what's your
Aaron.
name? Anna?
Aaron.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Aaron. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Aaron.
just want to touch base on what I think Daniel was speaking as well. If there's any leadership here, I know that the personal, Copilot is like $10 a month, which is makes it kind of hard to pass up, right? But at an enterprise level, I believe there's also settings that the enterprise can do that prevent any of the code that Copilot uses from being used outside of your enterprise. So I know that in our company, we don't let people use their personal licenses because it doesn't protect the opposite way.
This may
So
be
that might
outside
be an added
of
cost there.
this may be
Yeah.
outside of this conversation, but I use Claude AI. So what's your opinions on Claude AI versus Copilot? Or
Are
is
you
that
talking about
outside of
are you
this
talking
talk?
about Claude Code or
Yeah,
using
Claude Code. Yeah,
okay.
Claude Code.
I honestly will say that I do use Claude Code probably a lot more in my personal stuff because of the recent sub agents capability. However, what I've also seen is anytime Claude Code comes out with something cool, Copilot, like within a few months, has something similar. Um, that not necessarily that it's like better or worse or anything, but something similar. It works a little differently, maybe. Kind of like one time I was using Claude Code and they came out with planning mode. And I was like, that's amazing. And then I was like, well, Copilot stinks now. And then Copilot came out with chat modes where I can make a planning mode. And then I was like, okay, Copilot's cool again. It's Copilot's all of the tools are gonna, I think, eventually converge at some point in some way. And I think really as far as like using either one, if I don't know of any this is just probably because of my lack of a better term, ignorance, but I don't know of any companies that are saying, hey, we're going to use Claude Code, not for the sake of that it's not good, but more so that they already have Microsoft Teams. It's just another line item to have Copilot, or because of the legal thing that Daniel mentioned with the enterprise licensing or various other reasons. So like it's just whichever tool is best for you. I'm sorry, that was a really long it depends answer. And
It's okay. Got my answer.
but I definitely really like Claude Code as well. I try to keep up to date on the tooling as much as I can. But there's so much. There's like a new tool that comes out every week, just like it used to be JavaScript frameworks. But good question though.
Thank you.
Can I ask you one question that I haven't found the answer to myself, nor have I'm, as I do research, I'm finding people really offering good suggestions, is getting Copilot to, or even Claude or anyone to follow patterns and do code reuse. They seem to always want to write everything from scratch, which quickly becomes tech debt that's out of control. And I don't know, do you have any suggestions there? Have you guys found solutions to this or best practices?
I think the closest thing I could say that I know of that would help curb that would be tweaking and like testing out your instruction set for the types of files. Um, but I don't know of anything offhand that would be better than that right now, as far as Copilot, at least.
I'm sorry. What was the question? To do reads? Is that what you
It was
The
about
code
trying to reuse
reuse.
code instead of generating new code, trying to reuse code. So like I personally put in my instructions whenever I make new ones, is I want it to use the dry principle at the very like top. And it's not always perfect at following it, but it
That's
tends
good.
to help it a little bit.
Tell it the pattern to use it specifically. That's where I think me and even a lot of people I'm talking to, they have to give it so much context to get it to do something proper that you end up wasting so much time. So I'm kind of looking for what's the best context to give it? Like, what is it? Is there any like suggestions on where do we go to really help a large code base from just kind of just doing everything small itty bitty pieces? And it's like, well, we already did this over here, just reuse it.
Yeah.
Patrick, are you going to share the awesome Copilot repo? That's probably a good thing that could help with that.
Oh yeah. You want me to put that in the chat? Or you want me to put it in the chat or just put it on the website or
I'll throw it in the chat if we got it up.
yeah, if you want to go ahead and throw it in the chat, I'd have to I tried to open the chat. Oh, there's the chat. It opened up on my other screen.
It was the first link
This
in
is
Google too, if that helps.
Yeah, this is just a repo by Microsoft. It's pretty new. I think it's only like a month old. It's
Yeah.
just a bunch of custom instructions and prompts and stuff that Microsoft put together for different use cases. So might sort of give you an idea of like how you could curve that in an instructions file, possibly.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the demo, you were asking Copilot to generate prompts. How do you save that prompt to be used later? Is there a button or something?
So there's not a way to just like click a button and save the prompt that you did. But what you could do is at the end of like, if you did a prompt and you really liked its output, what you could do is switch into agent mode if you're not already in it and say, hey, that I really liked that prompt. Can you export that into a prompt file and then put it in the right spot to reuse it later? The way that I made those conversation outputs that I showed in my demo was at the end of each Copilot session, I switched over to agent mode and said output the entirety of this conversation into a markdown file. And so what you could do is do that as a workaround or a stopgap until potentially, I hope like Copilot adds like prompt saving and prompt sharing. So, but no, it's a good question. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
Anyone else?
Yep.
I know we're 5 minutes over, but had some
Oh,
really
wow.
good questions.
Just quick question for you. I mean, seem to be using this a lot. What's your favorite agent in Copilot to use?
Oh, you mean the model?
Yeah.
So probably my most used right now might be GPT 4.1 because of the beast mode whenever I use it, because it just defaults to 4.1. And it's also, it comes with Copilot as far as like it's not a premium agent or not agent, premium LLM model, whatever the right words. It's
I
like,
hear you.
but we've been seeing really good things with Claude Sonnet 3.7 for code. 4 has been pretty good too, but I think it's a little bit more premium. So it kind of depends if you want to blow through all your tokens really fast or if you want to, use the less expensive ones or the ones that are included. But it kind of depends. I haven't like done a thorough. I might need to do this. I might put this on my to-do list for things to do for fun in the evenings, but to do like some thorough testing on my actual thoughts on each individual model and do like the same exact task with each one like a bunch of times and see what the outputs are and if I like it. So it's a good question. I would just say default 4.1 just because of beast mode. But when I'm using Claude code, it's whatever Claude picks for me because I let it do that.
Thanks.
Cool. Sounds like we're done with questions, and we're a little over anyway, but it was okay because they're awesome questions and awesome presentation. So thanks, Patrick. Hopefully we're all AI'd up now. We're good to go. So I will just shout out once again the feedback form in the chat. I will include it in the email after the meetup as well. So fill that out for Patrick and also the group. But thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see everyone next month and an in-person one within the next few months, I'd say. So
Thank you all. See you.
thanks everyone.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Daniel.